Morning, happy Friday. Thank you for joining this session of Azure Power Lunch. Disclaimer one more time for the recording. We are recording this call. Recording are placed on our YouTube channel. So if you don't want to be recorded, you can drop off now. So thank you for joining. Today we're going to be talking about Cosmos DB updates. Uh, there are provided some new updates, Cosmos DB, in the latest Ignite, and I just want to cover the two which are kind of really interesting. One is role-based access control with Azure AD. And if you're not familiar, just want to step back for a second. If you're not familiar with the Azure Cosmos DB, this is Microsoft NoSQL database, um, and that provides you the ability to store JSON data. In addition, it allows you to, it's a um, model where you can basically have other interfaces like you can store your data and you can access it over supports Postgres, sorry, um, MongoDB, these type of interfaces it supports. One of the big asks that the customer wanted was more granular access, the ability to granularly control data plane access through Azure AD. So first of all, what is available today? So if you have your data in Cosmos DB, you can use basically a key model where you have the key access key with your account. You can use that to access data. This has a lot of limitation. One of that is there is no granularity. The other is if you lose your key, that's it. You have to kind of regenerate it and things like that. That can break other application. Another one which is still available is a resource token, and that kind of allows you the ability to generate um, resource token based on users and permission. It has the ability to provide granularity, but once again, it's hard to integrate with Azure AD. And so that's where this new preview feature comes in, which allows you to use Azure AD AAD identity to access your database. So basically, you can say this user can access data, only read the data. This user can do read writes, things like that. And so you can do very fine-grained permission. And with that, if think that somebody doesn't need access to data, you can just remove their access without impacting anybody else. Finally, you can look at the audit trail. Who did what? And especially in the financial organization, this is a big priority where they want to look at this information for a number of reasons. So that's where this thing comes into picture. With that, so, and we will look at all of these things. So, first of all, how does this work? If you are familiar with Azure role-based access control, it's the same thing. Just want to quickly talk about a few concepts. You have um, access permissions or actions, permission model actions that you take and create a role definition, which is basically a template of how you can or what access somebody will have based on those actions. And then you assign it to a service principal. It can be a user, managed identity, or a Azure AD principal. You assign it to it through role assignment. So that's how this thing works. What Cosmos DB have done is they have created this permission model. So what you can do, you can take, you know, uh, you can take fine-grained custom role based on these action from this permission model, create those roles, and then assign it to um, a user, as I said, users, service principals, managed service identity, things like that. So that's how they will access the data. So without further ado, I want to show it to it in a demo. So let's switch to our favorite editor, Visual Studio Code. So I have, as you can see, I have two JSON file. Basically, there are two custom roles. This one is a read-only role. As you can see, I only have read-only permissions here. This user can only read the data. That's all. That's all they can do. They cannot modify any data. Or this custom role allows the user or service principal to read the
Okay.
data only. Any questions? Sorry. Um, and the second one, which is here in the read write, that allows you, this gives you full access. Let me just double click it. This gives you full access. So this role basically gives you full access to do everything with that particular database. And then, and just keep in mind, as I said before, this is only available through the CLI. Right now, there is no support through the portal. So you can only go through CLI or PowerShell. Let me take it back. Yes, CLI or PowerShell. So this is my resource group. I have a account that I have created, Cosmos DB account, and this is the and what I'm doing is, first of all, I'm going to be creating role definition. And just to save time, I have already created those, and these are the link to those role definition, the resource IDs of the role definition. Okay, and then I what I have done is I have created two service principles. Okay, so these are the two service principles. The reason I'm going with service principle versus managed identity, I just want to show you the code, like how the exact error that we receive. So it was easier with service principle than managed identity. So that's why I have done it. Okay, so basically that's there. Two service principle. One is the Cosmos DB reader. One is Cosmos DB writer. Okay, and in here, if we go back to the VS Code, I am giving one service principal permission to the role definition, which is for read only, the other one for write. So that's what I'm doing. And I have added the link as well, and I will check in this code into. So if you want to take a look at it, you can. Um, but there's nothing special here. We're just creating role definition, custom role definition, and then we are assigning those role definition to service principal to complete the loop. Once that thing is there, then the next thing remain is how we make use of this. So this is I have a Visual Studio, and by the way, this support is there for C Sharp, Java, and JavaScript. So you can use any one of those languages to play around with it. And just keep in mind, right now this RBAC support is only for the SQL API. Uh, um, Cosmos DB is a polyglot. It supports other APIs as well, like Mongo, Cassandra. That support is not there yet. It's only there in preview for SQL API. Okay. Any question before we jump into some, like, go through the code? Okay. So basically what's happening here is very simple code. Um, I am just creating a token credential a um, using the service principal. That's all there is to it. The first one that I'm creating is for the reader service principal. Okay. And then I'm going in and I'm making a call into my Cosmos DB database. As you can see, there is no key. There is no primary key. We are just going through the service principal. I'm reading an entry from the database. I'm doing some modification. Um, and then I'm trying to upsert that entity into the database. Since this is the read-only user, let's see what happens. So I'm just gonna run this thing and okay, it's running. Go ahead. So first of all, it's gonna read the user. So I'm just gonna take a step in the code so we can see what the how it goes. And so yes, it's read a document from the database. Sorry, I said user. It's reading a document. This is the document in the database that is there. And let's take a look at that document one more time. Uh, this is the document, you know, these are the item volcanoes, and this is the document that it is reading. With that, let's go back. And now we made some change. Let's try to upsert that document into the database, uh, into our Cosmos DB. Let's see what happens. Oh, we got an error. So what is the error? It's hard to read. So let's put it here, and I'm gonna increase the font size a little bit. So this is the error. Response status code indicate forbidden 403. Request is blocked. Principal. This is the service principal. This is basically the service principal of the read-only user. Does not have required RBAC permission. So very clearly, it is RBAC that is not letting it go through. Okay. So that's the advantage. Okay, now what we're gonna do is we're just gonna quickly change our service principles and let's try one more time. Okay, what we're gonna do, we're gonna uncomment this code, comment this one, and let's run it one more time. In the meantime, any questions, please feel free to ask. Oh, please continue. Okay, so once again, we read that value, and since this has read access, so that's gonna be there. Uh, and it's gonna now try to write it, and yes, it is written. So what we just gonna run it, and that's it. Let's go back there and let's look at our data, and let's run this query. Second. You see, this has updated APL 2021. We just appended that into the type. Okay, so that's that. It's important. One thing we talked about how we can audit this information, how we can see who did what. Okay, so now the support is there in log analytics. So what you will have to do is one thing to keep in mind, you will have to go in and you have to connect it to log analytics. So for that, you will, let me go into diagnostic setting. I have already made the diagnostic setting here. Basically, in your case, you will have to go in data plane request. This is important. So just make sure you have all of these and connect them, send to log analytics of workspace. Okay, then you can query that data in log analytics and find that information out. And let's look at a sample. So this is a query. What I'm doing is I'm saying the resource provider. So now I am on the log analytics side. And by the way, you will see data after a few minutes. It can be up to 5-10 minutes sometime when your data logs start showing up. Okay. And this is the query. And by the way, I have the link, that resource link that I have. It has more detail around it. So this is the query. You have resource provider is document DB, category is data plane request, resource ID. This is your Cosmos DB resource ID. As you can see, this is that. And what I'm doing is I am summarizing over principal, role assignment, and operation name. So let's run this query. I'm saying for the last 4 hours, you can do for 24 hours, things like that. So let's run it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so this is what happened. This is all of the things that are going on in the system. As you can see, there are some queries that we are doing from the portal. That's why they're the principal ID, and because they're going through the what we call the key, based on the key, so that's not there. In any other scenario, as you can see, you have the principal ID and you have the role assignment. Okay, so you can see who did what, who made what change. Okay, so basically I can go in here and say, okay, this was the service principal, D77, and if I go into my Azure AD, I go into the writer, and here this is, one second, D77. So basically I can go back there and see who made this change, so I can kind of have a full trace of what's going on. So that's kind of end-to-end scenario that it allows me to do. Any questions before we move on to the next topic? Hope everybody is kind of get an idea of how this thing is working. Okay, the second feature is continuous backup with point in time restore. This is one of the most asked feature. The existing backup scenario was full backup every 4 hours. Okay, and what we were doing, we were having those backups and for up to, a span of 720. I mean, we only keep the two backups are stored by default. You can change that interval through the Azure portal. This is what we had before. Okay. And but one of the key pain point the customer had is, let's say if you have to restore the database, what will happen? In that case, you have to call support and they will have to restore it. There was no way to do it through the portal or CLI, things like that. Oh, by the way, this change, you will have to do it at the creation time. So you have to pick your backup policy at creation time. So let me show it to you. So let's say if we are going to create a Cosmos DB database. So let's pick here Cosmos, your Cosmos DB, and let's say we create it, and you have all the different stuff, SKU, go to the backup policy. Periodic, this is the existing one. Continuous, this is basically what is in preview. Okay, once you pick this one, this is will be the policy for this particular instance. Okay, you cannot change it. You have to recreate your instance if you want to change the policy. Okay, so with that, that's important thing to keep in mind. Let's go back to the slide deck. I want to show you here. So what customer asks for, of course, ability to have a granular point in time restore, and second thing is have it have the ability to self manage it through portal, and that's what these um, new changes provide. What they allow you to do is, if you have done an operation which may have corrupted the data, like deleted something which was not supposed to be deleted from a container, or updated something which was not wrong with the wrong update, you can restore it. You can, if you by accident you delete an account or you delete basically a database or a container, you can restore it. Okay, and you can restore it into a region where you have. Just keep in mind, and this is kind of a diagram which explains it, how it works. It continuously makes backup of your database, okay, without incurring, um, you know, any extra provision throughputs, okay, or the performance, of your database. So that's very key point to keep in mind. Um, Second thing, it takes these backups in every region. So let's say you have a writable copy in East US2 and then read only in some other region. It will take backups in all region. Okay. Just keep in mind as we speak, it does not support. These are some of the limitation. It does not support write scenario. It only supports write read scenario. Okay. So this is an important thing to keep in mind. In terms of restore, these are the supported scenario in the preview as we speak. Okay, like if you have a container, you can restore, or you can go take an account to a previous point in time and all that. So you can basically that all of these uh, things are possible. Um, and it also impact metadata. So for example, you had a container, you had modified its property, then you realize, oh my God, I mean, these properties were not supposed to be modified. that was all accidental, it is a mistake. How we go back, you know? What you can do is you can restore, do point in time restore to a time before you make this change, okay? And then it will allow you to do that. Okay. Okay, how does it work? Uh, let's quickly go back here and let's take a look at the backup. Okay, so this is your database. So what we can do is we come here, this is point in time restore. If you have picked point in time restore policy, okay, it has two containers, one database. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into here. This is what date you want to go back to. Okay, so I can pick, for example, 18th. Just keep in mind, this is UTC time. Okay, I can pick, let's say, maybe 10 p.m. or something. Oh, sorry, 10 p.m. And at the same time, I can, it shows me certain events that happened for a particular database that I can pick. Okay, so this is, I created a database, then I created a simple item, all of these things and all. So this is basically, these are all my events. Uh, and by the way, these are creation, these are not data plane events. Just keep in mind, does not have visibility, or it right now you cannot pick those change events from here. I mean, if you know the time, you can put the time there in the restore, but those events are not listed here. This event feed is only showing, um, you know, the events that are happen in regards to metadata. Oh, sorry, in regards to entities like database creation, entity creation like database creation, container creation, things like that. So these are all the things that can happen. So yeah, that's fine. So I can pick a location. Remember, I can only restore where my Cosmos DB is. I cannot go to another region. I can either restore the entire account, or I can even restore a single container. So for example, if I just want to store simple item, this will ask me, and finally it will ask me, uh, okay, ask me the name of the database, and it will ask me, okay, if I do this, this will be the charge, things like that. And at that point, I can say, okay, submit, and it will start creating the database, and it will, once that is ready, then I will be able to access that restored um, Cosmos DB account. Okay. Um, so a few things to keep in mind. It is not free. As you can see here, right below this, there is a cost estimation. So it does cost money to restore. There is a cost of backup, and then there is a cost, one-time cost of a particular restore. Okay, so that's, and of course, if the new account is created, you will be paying for RUs for the new account. So just keep that in mind, when going with this approach versus the other one. Once again, that cost benefit ratio, principle should be kept in mind. That's important thing to keep. Any questions on that? Okay, so I'm gonna save money. I'm not gonna click on the submit button, but once, because it takes a few minutes, I don't think we will have enough time to see the restore, but that's how it does. Um, this is okay. It is alluding to that user need to have certain permissions. So let's come to the RBAC side of this. Not every user can do a restore. Of course, I'm a subscription admin, I can do it. But if a user want to restore a database, they need to have, these permissions to do the restore. One way you can do it from the portal, and you can only do it at the subscription level. Just keep in mind, through the portal, using, for example, if I go into the subscription and I say, I can go in here and access control, and I say I want a new role assignment. There is a role called Cosmos Restore. Let's do Cosmos DB Restore Operator. If somebody has that access, they will be able to restore the database, but that they will have access to across all the Cosmos DB in that subscription. Okay. If you want to go more granular, if you want more, I mean, you can create your own custom definition for a role. I mean, you don't have to use this role. I mean, you can use your own, but make sure you have all those permissions that are listed there. If you want to do that, you have to go through CLI. Same thing that we were doing previously, create a role definition, assign it to a particular service principal, user managed identity, or a AD service, Azure AD service principal, and then go from there. Okay, so that's what you will have to do. In the case, if you want to do more granular permission, if you just want to give somebody permission to all the databases in a subscription, that you can do from the portal as of now. Okay, so just a quick recap, two items that we talked about. One is the RBAC control at the data plane level in Cosmos DB that is currently in preview, only available for SQL API as we speak, and the support is there through CLI and PowerShell. In terms of SDKs, supported with .NET SDK, Java, and Node.js. Okay, that's first thing. Second one that we talked about is point-in-time backup and recovery restore in Cosmos DB. That is also in preview. You have to do it at the creation of a database of a Cosmos DB account. Okay, and that one, as I showed you, you have to have there are certain kind of some limitation. Only supports write-read scenario. Write-write scenario is not supported, but you can recover point in time from any, if you have modified any documents, deleted any document, or updated any document, you can restore from that. You can restore at the uh, container versus database versus the account level. So that's kind of a quick recap. Any question? We have 1 more minute. Okay. Seems there's no questions. Thank you very much. Hope to see everyone next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch. Next week, we will have Azure Cache, Redis Cache program, product team, somebody from that team presenting on the new Azure Redis Cache features such as Azure Redis Cache Enterprise. So please join in. And I hope everybody had a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining.
Thanks.
Thank you, Navid.
Session.
Thank you.